Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, wherever you may be tuning in today's episode from around the globe. We're here at the 2024 ARA show in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I'm absolutely pumped and super excited to not only be sitting down with today's guest, but also to be back here in the United States for an absolute jam-packed schedule over the coming days, sitting down with some absolute icons, legends, and leaders of the global rental industry. It's episode 4 of our 2024 ARA show campaign, and today I'm sitting down with an individual with quite the resume over the past 3 decades in the live event and power generation industry, starting his career back in the early 1990s, in 1997, to now in 2024 as the current CEO of CES Power based in Memphis, Tennessee. CES being the leader in the global rental events, power generation, and HVAC rental market, powering some of the world's largest events, including the famous Coachella Valley Music Festival, the NASCAR Circuit, EDC Las Vegas, the NFL Super Bowl, Formula One, Bonnaroo Music Festival, Taylor Swift. The list really is endless. I'm extremely thankful, excited, and humbled to be accompanied by and to welcome Greg Landa. Greg, welcome on the Rental Journal.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to our discussions.
No, thank you, Greg. Our connection really started last year at the start of 2023 during my time being hosted by CES Power for my International Rental Business Leadership Exchange program, coming all the way over from Australia, spending 4 weeks with you guys at CES Power around the country, experiencing multiple of your branch locations, getting on some amazing event sites, and growing some great friendships and relationships with the truly amazing staff and team that you've collected and grown. I really cannot express my thanks and gratitude enough to not only yourself, Tiffany, Jay, Terrence, the CES Power team and the CES Power leadership team for the amazing opportunities that you provided myself with, the hospitality and how much I truly learnt during my time with you guys, growing myself personally and being paired to a like-minded company to ours back in Australia. It was truly a dream come true, so I can't pass on my thanks enough.
No, listen, it was great. It doesn't seem like it's been a year. Boy, does a year move quickly, right? So, and we loved hearing about what you were doing in Australia, right? So great success story. So thanks for having me on and looking forward to our discussions.
12 months has gone fast and a lot has happened in 12 months for CES Power, and the expansion has been absolutely amazing, and I'm really excited to be talking to you, for you to run me through what's happened in the last 12 months, because I've been staying up to date as much as I can, but it doesn't seem like you can stay up to date with the growth of CES Power. But Greg, CES Power to some sounds quite new, but you yourself and the team rebranding from CAT Entertainment Services to CES Power in 2021. CES is not new to the industry at all. You guys have been very much leading the race in the events power generation segment for nearly 36 years, dating all the way back to 1987 as Show Power. Greg, like I mentioned before, CES has quite the resume of well-known events, incredibly large-scale projects, working alongside international household names. But firstly, can we expand on who is CES Power, the history and the origin story of the company to what people see it as today?
Sure. So we trace our roots back to a company called Show Power, which is kind of the dominant leader in touring power. Back then, there was a lot of power needed for large concert tours. There still is, but not the domination that there once was. We then eventually sold that business in 1999 to General Electric, and a number of us left and founded CAT Entertainment Services in 2000. And we ran that business successfully, grew it until 2021, in which we were purchased by private equity and formed CES Power. So since 2021, we've been known as CES Power. Coming out of COVID, it's just been rampant growth, right? A lot of pent-up demand for entertainment projects, and then also each of the individual projects have just gotten larger over time. So that's really part of our success, and really having a great team behind us, right? It's not about me or a few people on the management team. We've got 325 people dedicated to doing events across the globe. So.
Sure. Greg, what initially drew you to the equipment rental and the live events industry? You're originally from San Diego in California, joining relatively quite soon after your studies. For the audience at home, run us through who is Greg Landa and the development of your journey and your extensive career so far.
Sure. So was actively involved in entertainment and theater projects during high school. Decided that's the career that I wanted, and that's what I majored in college. And then I was lucky enough to get involved with America's Cup, actually in San Diego, which San Diego hosted a number of times. And to that end, that's what started my career in power distribution and power generation. And then the rest of it, got involved in the Olympics in Atlanta, and just really blessed to be able to be involved with such large-scale events. And once you get involved with those larger events, you have this. It's kind of a network, right? And people pull you into the next large event, and it just kind of, the cycle just grows and continues. So.
No, definitely. Greg, we briefly mentioned a few projects and customers that CES Power partner with to deliver your services, but could you run us through the current product lineup, the services you offer? I know CES Power also work alongside a number of other industries beside your live event projects.
Sure. So first and foremost, right, obviously, power generation, primarily diesel generators. And then really the secret to our success is the amount of power distribution equipment we supply, right? So it's not just a generator, we're doing the entire distribution, right? So cabling, transformers, disconnects, et cetera. And then we also do climate control, temperature control, primarily in the US that consists of air conditioning product with some amount of heat. And then last year we got involved in doing Wi-Fi networking, CCTV, and televisions for larger special events, right? So essentially it's just like power, we're just doing the backbone of the internet services needed for a project.
Sure. Greg, CES has had amazing growth recently, very much expanding both locally here across the US and now moving international with your work with the famous Josh Moscow, who was actually featured on the Rental Journal back on episode 110 in 2022. Recently going into 2024, finalising your 9th and 10th acquisition since 2021 in Euro Touring Power based in Ireland, servicing across Europe. Additionally, UK-based 4th generation and announcing your creation of CES Global, very much extending your logistical reach for the international events industry. Greg, run us through all these exciting expansions, the acquisitions that you've recently had and your plans moving forward with this global outreach.
Sure. So, for a long time, we've done power globally, right, for the likes of these large concert tours. But obviously, logistics are getting more expensive, and we really felt like it was time to make the next leap in our trajectory, and that was to be in Europe, right? A lot of activity. Europe seems to be about 18 months behind the US coming out of COVID. So you're really starting to see a lot of large entertainment projects take place now as people are feeling more comfortable about large events and large gatherings. And so we had an opportunity to work with people that we knew, both in Ireland and the UK. So it was just a natural, right, to be there. And really to support the clients that were kind of dragging us, pulling us to Europe, if you would, which is exciting, right? We don't want to be pushing, we want to be pulled, right, if you would. And so that's really what brought us to Europe.
Greg, you're extremely well travelled and have had an extensive list of international experience over the years. I know you worked in Australia for a short stint leading up to the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney, the Winter Olympic Games in Japan, the World Cup in France, Europe and South America. And I wish I had a photo for the audience of the hook in your Memphis office that's holding what seems to be hundreds, if not thousands, of event passes that you've accumulated over the years. What are some of the best places the live event industry and the equipment rental industry has taken you over the past 30 years, and what's some standout projects that you've worked on?
Well, certainly the Olympic Games in Sydney were probably one of the highlights, right, for a number of reasons. Just love the culture, love the people. Easy to do business, right? In that environment. My first time, going to Australia in the late '90s and up until the games, right? So that was kind of a special period for me. Certainly, World Cup in France was historic, right? And extremely interesting. All that I think has helped shape where we are today, right? To have learn things from different cultures, learn things from competitors and other suppliers around the world makes us what we are today, right? We like to borrow those best ideas if we can.
Sure, Greg. Much like our business back home in Australia, CES delivers a much more solutions-based service compared to a typical general equipment rental company, and also specialising and focus on a niche category in live events, requiring much more of a focus and targeted approach to not only your choices in product, your services, and also the extensive knowledge needed by your team members. Greg, what sets CES Power apart, and from your perspective, what's been the biggest contributors to the success of CES Power dating all the way back to 1987?
Sure. Again, it's our people, right? It's the team, right? It's not about one person. It's about collectively what we can bring. But really the difference is for us is we're not dropping off a piece of equipment, whether that be a generator or an air conditioning unit. We're giving an engineered solution, right? Where we literally engineer the job, we install the job, we remove the job, and we supply all the componentry required. There are others that just drop off a piece of equipment and expect the customer to basically handle it. That's not our approach, right? So we're really looking for those customers, those projects that want the engineered solution.
Greg, like we mentioned, the emphasis of knowledge and expertise needed by your team is extremely important, with being much more specialised category of our industry, and additionally the events industry being so labour intensive, having to put in those long hours to meeting the deadlines before event time, which I'm sure you've experienced many of those late nights setting up for events over the years. But Greg, prior to today's episode, I actually reached out to the CES Power leadership team and asked the question of who is Greg Landa as CEO to CES Power?
Uh-oh, I'm getting concerned.
Jay Williams, someone who you've worked alongside for many years and your current COO, explained the best piece of advice that he's received from yourself. So this is from Jay. Everyone on our team plays an important role in the success of the company, making sure they're in the right role to use their talents and to be challenged. Teamwork and talent are the foundation to CES Power's success. We are not just renting generators to our clients. We provide essential services, which requires much more from our talented team. Greg, how important and to what impact does the skills and the culture of the CES Power team, like you mentioned, contribute to ultimately the success of your company?
I mean, we couldn't do what we do without our team, right? And I think it's important to realize that people like Jay, right, have been on the team for 30 years, right? With that, it becomes actually a family, right? It's even more than a team, right? And there's a number of others on the team that have been with us a very, very long time, right? And I think you need that tension, workmanship, passion for the business, or you can't get the results that we've achieved over the last 30 years.
Greg, CES put a massive importance on the support and the transitioning of US military vets into the CES Power team, with many of team members within the company having served to now working in the live events industry and having many of these individuals in leadership positions. With many of these team members having immense experience with power generators, HVAC systems, international travel, working in team environments, and in some instances constructing mini cities, which is very similar to your operation of CES Power. How does the incorporation of these heavily passionate and experienced individuals tie into, like we're saying, this culture of your company?
So first of all, we're honored for anyone who's served that wishes to kind of come and be part of our team. I think there is probably no better proving ground than working in the military, right? The conditions in which they have to work under, their work ethic, et cetera, just makes them, great, right? So, and also the training, right? You can't underestimate what the U.S. military does from a training perspective, right? To get these people prepared. Most of them have worked in the motor pool, right? They've set up generators, they've set up HVAC and building up essentially camps, right? Either domestically or overseas, right? So we're fortunate to have those people on our team, right? And they really understand the true nature of teamwork, right? That sometimes people who haven't worked under those environments wouldn't understand.
Sure, Greg, I wanted to quickly mention on how truly amazed I was by the sheer scale that you operate at, with thousands of power distro items being packed and sent out to events daily. I actually did a bit of a pack up for a Taylor Swift and an Usher tour whilst I was in Memphis, which was absolutely amazing to see all the team coming together and putting these projects together. It's just a constant flow for these events here in the US. For example, the Coachella project in California being a load-in of over 200 generators and HVAC units for a short 2-week-long event. You have lots of moving parts.
Well, I mean, I think again, we've gone to kind of a hub and spoke, right? You spoke of Memphis, right? That's our corporate headquarters as well as our largest single facility. Being able to amass that amount of generators, temperature control, power distribution, et cetera, in one place and be able to send out, right? Kind of differentiates us from some of our competitors. Also, obviously, Memphis is a great logistical hub, right? You can hit many, many jobs within 600 miles, which is essentially a one-day drive with a truck. So, in addition to our team, right, it's important where our locations are and how they support our client base based upon where those projects are.
Sure, you obviously mentioned your hub being Memphis, but what are the other locations that CES have currently or that you've expanded on in the last couple of months?
Sure. So obviously Indio is our kind of a West Coast hub, if you would, right? We have facilities up and down California, right, in LA proper, as well as Sacramento. We've now established Las Vegas as a new location for us. Obviously Texas is big, right? Lots of projects there, so we have a Dallas location. And then we've mentioned Memphis, then we're up and down the eastern seaboard, right? From Miami, Orlando, DC, Boston, New Jersey, right? So pretty well got most of the large city centers, which then is usually associated with large projects. And then obviously recently we've gone to Europe and now we're both in Ireland and the UK.
Sure, Greg. I wanted to pivot slightly to a very exciting project that you've been working towards with the acquisition of Brickworks and the very knowledgeable Sam and also Echo Technologies, starting CES Technologies with digital infrastructure for the live events industry being a new pathway for CES Power, delivering mapping software, aerial drone surveying, imagery and also Wi-Fi network solutions like you mentioned. You guys have been very much pioneers with these new products which have been especially tailored to the live events industry. Greg, how do you see these additions are going to impact the efficiencies of your projects going forwards, and how do you see this technology is going to harmonise into your expanding offerings for customers?
Sure. So, I mean, it started out originally with Brickworks, basically a digital mapping service, right? Which allowed us to put the equipment on the map as opposed to just use kind of a flat PDF. And off of that, we're able to not only scale dimensionally what our cable runs are and where our infrastructure is, but we're also able to see on the map real time how it's performing. From that, we realized, hey, the only way to really make this work is to have interactive equipment, right? And the only way to really do that efficiently is to basically be able to control the backbone of Wi-Fi networking. So from that, we obviously made the acquisition of Echo. That was super exciting. And then most recently bought Round Rock Tour Technology, right, which was a competitor of ours. So it really kind of solidified our size and scale in the US for those type of services.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing when I did sit down with Sam to see a Google Map product for basically live events, getting to place where your generators are going to be to meet the requirements of the power for that specific site, for the tent setup, or maybe even for the stage, and giving that to your team members is just absolutely such a huge step towards the future and what I see the live events industry will become.
Yeah, game changer for us, right, in terms of efficiency and being able to lay those jobs out quicker. And also, because the jobs repeat in many cases, right, get so much more efficient the next year. Hey, we need a little bit more cable here, we need a little less over there. We just weren't able to do that off a regular PDF map.
Sure. Greg, these expansions in technology, how do you see it being tied into your future plans with CES Power, pioneering this new wave of emerging technologies for your customer base? Do you see this setting an industry standard that your customers will expect or even require going forwards in the live events industry?
We hope so, right? And I think the technology then allows us to kind of make the next leap into sustainability, which I think is so important for everyone, right? Now we can pull emissions data off those machines, put it real time on the maps, right? It's really a kind of a game changer moving forward. Obviously, there's more development that's needed, but I think all of us are trying to become more efficient, frankly, better global citizens, right, of the environment. Obviously, we do produce emissions, so if there's any way we can be more efficient and reduce that, that's a positive not only for our clients, but frankly for the planet, right?
Sure, you obviously just mentioned emissions and going green and what the future will look like for the world and where it's moving. Greg, being a mobile power provider with your main product line obviously operating on traditional fuel sources like all of us do have in our fleets, but now with the addition of CES Technology starting to implement these zero-emission site vehicles on site, unveiling your new UPS system at the recent NFL Super Bowl in Arizona last year, expanding your uninterrupted power supply and green offerings, you have multiple options for all customers to align with their specific budgets, the performance they require, the scale, the sustainability that they need to meet. Leading this company into the future, how do you see the CES Power product line developing? And is your approach to expansion based on the needs and requirements of the customers that you partner with?
Sure. I mean, I think, if the project is going to be long-term in the same location, it makes sense to use utility power. And we've been pushing clients to permanently install, but basically consulting with them to get power installed on those sites. We're happy to actually supply less diesel generators on site. We're okay with that. Maybe we're just a backup source to the utility, right? Because you obviously can't afford a failure. But cabling and distribution is far more efficient than adding more generators to the site as the power needs grow, or in some cases, upsizing a single generator and taking on multiple stages off of one power plant as opposed to using 6 to 10 generators that people have done in the past.
Sure, even when I come down here to New Orleans last year with the team at CES Power for the Miss Universe pageant, using the utilisation of mains power, but having the generators there just as backup for the TV broadcasting trucks is just absolutely amazing for me to see these huge, large-scale generators sitting there ready to go, not burning fuel, but still there if it is needed, if that power supply is lost. Greg, I wanted to circle back, rebranding to CES Power in 2020 and 2021. Some would consider a full rebranding a sufficient task in itself. And then out of nowhere, the infamous COVID-19 hits. With record numbers of cases, the whole world shutting down and coming to a screeching halt, the entire live events industry being closed, unsure of when it would return to normal or even return at all. How did you navigate and lead the company during these unprecedented times? Run me through the personal emotions that you faced, I'm sure, not only starting CES as a new company, but also losing your core customer base and the industry that you're focused on.
Sure. So, I mean, I don't think anyone could have predicted what COVID was going to do, both to the world, let alone to what it would do for live events, right? And as everyone knows, live events basically went to zero. We were fortunate enough that a big part of our business still is live broadcast. That continued. There was a little bit of a dip for a period of time. So we had to reinvent ourselves. We were able to do the NBA bubble, for instance, in Disney, right? We were on site for over 90 days supplying prime power. And then in addition, we learned that, hey, our same generators can do hospitals, right? They could do COVID testing sites, et cetera, et cetera. So it did get us kind of a little bit of a foray into the industrial, non-entertainment events market. And it's something that we intend to continue for those people who want an engineered solution. It doesn't always have to be events or entertainment. It could be something specialized in terms of a hospital or some kind of other natural disaster.
So pivoting and going towards other industries was that main focus?
Yeah, 100%, right? So, I mean, we needed to keep our people busy. We needed to keep bringing in the dollars, if you would, until the event industry was able to rebound. But obviously, as everyone knows, it took much longer than everyone originally expected, right?
Sure. What was it like during that time, Greg, to the stresses of starting a brand new company or pivoting from what you guys once were with these unprecedented times, not knowing when it would come back, having to lay off staff, having to lose projects and look for other industries? It must have been a pretty hard time to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, we were literally working 7 days a week just to scratch and claw at any projects that could happen, and then I think everyone thought it was going to rebound quicker, right? So it was like next month, right? In the meantime, we had to find work to do, right? And it was stressful on our team members, right? They didn't know what the future was. Previous to COVID, right, we had never had a slowdown. We had always been growing, right? There was always tons of work for our equipment and for our team, right? So it was the first time that it was like, wow, this is what it feels like to be in maybe an economic downturn, which even during economic downturns, we had always performed well, right? So toughest time of my career, to be honest with you.
Greg, throughout your lifetime and time in the equipment rental industry and live events industry, you've worked alongside, I'm sure, some amazing people and team members. You've been such an amazing leader and mentor to many, but who have been some key contributors to your personal success and people that you see as mentors that you've gained along the way?
Sure. So, one, right, during my days at Show Power, our founder back then was a gentleman named John Campion. Innovator, right, in terms of packaging up power for the live events industry, both in touring and also broadcast, right? Taught me a lot about not only how to operate a business, but also how to make sure you're taking care of your customers. Because ultimately, right, our customers are dictating our growth and our success. So a large one. A number of people from the television industry over the years, right, were mentors for me in terms of how to operate, how to make sure that, your word is your bond, right? I mean, there is no second chances on the entertainment industry. So if you have to work all night to make it happen, then that's what you need to do. If you have to ship overnight because you have a piece of downed equipment, that's what you need to do, right? Once you take on a project, you're in it for the long haul.
Greg, I wanted to quickly show our appreciation to the amazing Tiffany. Her former role being the CES Power Chief of Staff, but I would personally describe Tiffany as the heart of CES Power, or everyone's second mum in the CES Power leadership team, has described you as being passionately bold and moving at 90 miles a minute, in some instances moving at the speed of light in your pursuit of future visions, which I love that description that she gave. Greg, I know there's always something new brewing, things in the works and exciting new opportunities in your relentless pursuit to taking over the live events industry. The burning question in our industry is always the what's next question, the aspirations for this continued growth of the CES Power team, the CES Power locations, the expansion of the brand internationally. What are your plans for the future, and maybe a new personal best in your offshore fishing might be on the cards as well?
Sure. So I appreciate Tiffany's kind comments. I think we're bullish on Europe. We're bullish globally on other opportunities, right? It's not to say that we think the U.S. is slowing down. Just the opposite. It's doing extremely well, and we have some other M&A in the pipeline for the U.S. But there are so many global opportunities. I've never seen this in my 30 years with the ripe opportunities globally, and we just feel like the time is now, right, to do more M&A, to do more greenfields internationally. So, I mean, events all seem to be getting larger, and thereby requiring more power and climate control, right, which is kind of key to our success. I think we're going to look for battery solutions and other ways to be more sustainable, right? As I said before, right, if we can get mains power in certain locations, we certainly want to do that. And then lastly, if I can get a little bit of an opportunity to do some offshore fishing, I'd love to do that as well. I don't think that's in the cards in the next 3 to 6 months, but maybe long term I'll be able to kind of pursue that passion a little bit more in my off time. So.
Greg, I do have another short sound bite and short story from your COOJ that I'd love to share, both yourself, the audience, and also for you to expand on. One year, Greg travelled out of state and started loading by himself on Christmas Day for one of our PGA golf tournament clients. As the account manager at the time, the rest of the crew arrived a day later. That tells you all you need to know about his dedication to serving our clients and his work ethic, not to mention and giving and leading the team from the front. He intentionally made a personal sacrifice so that others on the crew could share Christmas Day with their family. I was on that crew and will never forget what he did for us. I could go on and on sharing many more stories and examples of Greg's leadership, but I'm sure he'd want me to get back to work. Greg, Jay describing this story as just one example of your sheer dedication, sacrifice, and relentless work ethic to the CES Power team, the live events industry, and your role as a leader. Greg, like all our episodes here in the Rental Journal, we finish with the question of how do you define success in both your personal life, your working marriage to CES Power, then the live events industry, and how has your personal definition of success developed over time and during your career?
So I guess my first comment on all that is, again, appreciate Jay's comments. I don't know that they're, I appreciate what he said, and I think really it's dedication to your team, right? Without the team, I couldn't be and I wouldn't have the success that I have today. I would, I guess, tell everyone, don't get into an industry unless you have a passion for it. So I guess while there's a lot of hard work associated with what we do and it's long hours and all of that, I do it because I truly love it, right? And I love the team that I work with. As I said before, it's family. And so for me, success, right, is getting customer feedback that says, hey, listen, we couldn't have done the project without you. We appreciate your team. You guys were able to fix a problem, that we didn't know how to fix without you, right? It's really the customer feedback that, to me, defines whether we're successful or not.
Greg, thank you once again from both myself, our business back home in Australia, for the immense opportunities you provided myself with. I really do wish you guys the very best for the future and the utmost fortune. I'm very much looking forward to seeing this continued growth and the amazing trajectory that you and the CES Power team are working towards, not only here in the US, but also just taking over the live events industry globally. Greg, thank you for your time today here in New Orleans. Thank you for coming on the Rental Journal, and I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It was great.